Sony is building their Marvel universe, and there's actually a new character from Marvel Comics that I think would be perfect for Sony to use as their Thanos and build towards a crossover event very similar to the way the MCU did for Infinity War and Endgame. Let's talk about Knull, the symbiote god, and why he would be the perfect overarching villain for the Sony Marvel universe. What's up, everybody? It's Josh. Welcome back to the channel. Smash that like button like Venom, and let's get right into this video. So let's get this out of the way real quick up front. Of course, Sony is going to do a Thanos-type villain, and of course, they're going to build something that's a big crossover event. Unless, of course, they're stupid. I mean, think about it. They're literally copying off the idea of the Marvel Cinematic Universe itself with their Sony Marvel Universe, and part of the thing that made the MCU so successful was these MacGuffins and how they were all connected to this one singular villain that then ended up being a huge crossover event, which paid off all of the movies and crazy stuff that came before. Infinity War and Endgame were the huge payoff to the MCU, and the fact that we knew we were moving towards it with Thanos being teased as early as Avengers 1 was part of the joy for the MCU. It's what brought people in and got them so hooked. So why would Sony copy the MCU and not copy what they did with Thanos and building towards that? Wouldn't make any sense. So unless they big doo-doo heads, they're gonna do this. So why Knull? Who's Knull? Why is Knull the perfect villain for them to build towards? Well, first let's talk about this character from the comics. Knull is actually incredibly new to Marvel Comics, being introduced in 2018 in Venom #3. But despite the character being new to Marvel Comics, he's actually retroactively been a part of the canon for way longer than most Marvel characters. So as the story goes, Knull is existing in all these different iterations of the universe, but then in the 7th iteration of the universe, the Celestials use this thing called the Light of Creation, and this is when they start building life on all these different planets, and light just comes into the known universe, and Knull is not down with that. He likes the dark. He was down with a dark and cold universe, and the Celestials created light, started to create life, and it pissed him off. And so then Knull creates an all-black Necro Sword and literally cuts the head off of one of the Celestials. The other Celestials see that and they're like, whoa, get him the F out of here. And so they banish both the severed head of the Celestial and Knull further into the abyss. And it is then that Knull creates the symbiotes, and he creates the symbiotes to go around the galaxy and basically snuff out all of the light around the universe. And that's a very TLDR description of his creation, but that's essentially it. He's this primordial god that actually is now the creator of the entire symbiote race, and he wants to snuff out all life in the universe. Oh, and he's powerful enough to literally take on Celestials. So this would perfectly fit with the setup for the symbiotes in Venom 1. The symbiotes are established as alien. They come from a different planet. They're found on a meteor from the astronauts in the first Venom movie, but their overall goal is actually to destroy Earth. And so Sony could reveal that those symbiotes are acting the way symbiotes would, but they're actually having their strings pulled by Knull, who is this way bigger threat that they could build towards. And a big part of why I think this would work perfectly for Sony is because they are trying to establish Venom as an anti-hero, and his connection to the symbiote Hive could essentially be the warning call for people of Earth when Venom figures out that this is what is happening, that Knull is coming back and destroying the entire universe, and that they have to do something about it. And so this anti-hero version of Venom that they have would be perfectly served by this crazy villain being their big Thanos. A lot of their other villains are sort of anti-heroes as well, and so you could see a scenario in which all of these villains have to work together, use their combined power to go defeat Knull, which would be brilliant. And on top of that, if they bring Tom Holland into this universe, and they want the Tom Holland that of course was the Spider-Man from the MCU, he will have already been to space, he will have already dealt with a universe threat of a villain just like Thanos, and so Spider-Man could essentially be working perhaps with S.H.I.E.L.D., gather up all of the Sony Marvel villains as a team and have them go into space to try to fight Knull. There's also this all-black Necro Sword Sword, which is an incredibly powerful artifact, and they want to try to keep that thing away from Knull. And so there could also be a MacGuffin that sort of starts showing up in these different films, which could potentially connect other characters, perhaps like Morbius, with the magic maybe having something to do with the Necro Sword, to his vampirism. There's a cool way to sort of involve the macro story for a lot of these different characters and have them tie into Knull. And as far as I'm aware, Knull, having been created in a Spider-Man comic, allows that licensing to be completely owned by Sony via the Spider-Man license that they currently have. But now let's kind of speculate about this possibility. I think I've sort of presented a good case as to why I think Knull would be the best. So let's talk about what's going on with Sony. Do you think that they could actually do this? Well, I do think it's interesting that this character was introduced in comics a couple of years ago now, and now we're sort of getting a lot more information about the Sony Marvel Universe. This could be something that they had in mind, or at least was brought to them, and they were like, okay, well, we could potentially set this up. Also, I think this is just kind of perfect for the way they decided to establish their universe. I mean, they start with Venom, and what a better way to sort of pay off the very beginning of your universe than to have a big symbiote threat be the threat of the Marvel Universe over there at Sony. Now, all current signs point to Sony wanting to do the Sinister Six and wanting to bring Spider-Man back over to their universe to mess around with his rogues gallery. I think that's going to sort of be the basis of their universe. But we also have been speculating a lot about the fact that they could establish S.H.I.E.L.D. or other organizations and literally set up a totally MCU thing over there at Sony. Maybe with this solo character or a character like Man-Wolf, or even the Jessica Drew Spider-Woman character that could potentially set up a ton of very interesting heroes. There's plenty of time for them to do a lot of stuff like Sinister Six, have Spider-Man and Venom fight, have Spider-Man fight the Sinister Six, and all of these different things, and they can slowly introduce this idea of the symbiotes perhaps returning to Earth as a first wave for Knull. I think the perfect way to do it is to put the all-black Necro Sword on Earth, have it tie to Morbius, and then you have a reason for the swarms of the symbiotes and Knull himself to target Earth and not have to have all of the Sony Marvel characters go out to space to fight Knull. And again, having Tom Holland Spider-Man, having already faced down with Thanos, already saved the universe, already been to space, this is like perfect, man. This won't be his first rodeo, and he can literally help these other characters do this sort of space battle thing if they need to, or do something absolutely wild. So look, right now, a lot of us are looking at the Sony Marvel Universe and we're saying, oh, this is pretty gritty, this is pretty grungy, it reminds me of 90s comic books, and that's fine. That's really cool. But I think, why not build towards something absolutely epic? Why not actually do something very similar to what Marvel did with Infinity War and Endgame and set up your Thanos and start to get really bombastic with this thing? Because the more money these movies make, and if what they are doing ends up being successful, they're going to need a big payoff. They're going to need to sort of up their game. And I think Knull is literally the perfect character for that. I'm actually kind of half wondering if the people that created this character for Marvel Comics didn't anticipate this happening for Sony and at least want to possibly create a Thanos for the symbiotes and for Spider-Man in Marvel Comics that then could be taken by Sony Pictures and put into a movie, you know, for royalties. I don't know for sure, but either way, it just seems almost too perfect for Sony to not use Knull in the capacity of Thanos in their universe. But those are my thoughts on why Sony should make their Thanos Knull the god of the symbiotes. I want to know what you think about this, of course. Let me know your thoughts about all of this in the comments section below. And now let's shout out Benjamin Graham. Indeed, it was Molecule Man in Marvel Comics that was a bomb set up by the Beyonders. So shout out to you, Benjamin. And now let's ask another nerd card question before we get out of here. I want to know what writer and artist team first established Knull in Venom #3 in 2018. That's right, I want to know who created Knull, the symbiote god in Marvel Comics. Answer that question in the comments section below. If you absolutely need more nerdy content in your life, click or tap over there to watch some more of our content. If you want to support us, liking and sharing this video definitely helps. Or consider checking out our Patreon, joining the list of awesome names you see below, and supporting us financially and getting some behind-the-scenes content. And as I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.